The overconfident VP with the gelled hair and buzzword addiction thought it would be poetic to fire me the same week I streamlined his entire infrastructure. Clean handover, idiot-proof dashboards labeled workflows. I'd made his job so easy, a golden retriever with Wi-Fi could have run it. The room froze when he said the words. My name still echoed off the Bluetooth mics. One person let out a sharp inhale. A junior analyst actually mouthed, "What the hell?" before HR cut him the look, what we called the corporate guillotine stare. 14 years, no heads up, not even a Slack emoji goodbye. Just a faux sympathetic smile from Todd Garrison, a digital layoff notice, and a room full of cowards pretending their connection dropped. I didn't cry. That part hits later in vending machine-lit motels with crunchy pillows and microwave lasagna. Instead, I stood up with purpose. One nod, slow, surgical. I slipped on my coat like armor and walked out without a glance back. Todd kept talking after I left. Of course he did. Guys like Todd think every word they say is a Forbes article waiting to be published. Probably practiced his goodbye in the mirror that morning while his Keurig brewed over a pile of unread compliance emails. And hey, if you're still watching this, don't be like the 97% of folks who ghost these stories without hitting subscribe. Seriously, subscribing helps way more than Todd's 5KO culture-building ping-pong table ever did. Toss a like too, it fuels the petty little engine that powers stories like mine. Anyway, out in the parking lot, my hands were trembling. Not rage, not fear. Just adrenaline crashing hard after the cleanest betrayal I've ever witnessed. Wind cut through my sweater like I owed it money. My ID badge was still clipped to my hip. Like a joke. Like a ghost tag. I looked back up at the windows. Couldn't tell which office was the server hub anymore. Not since I helped migrate it to AWS. I didn't even remember what region we deployed in. But I knew. I knew every hidden cron job. Every API workaround, every webhook I duct-taped at 3 a.m. during that Christmas Eve outage Todd never even acknowledged. I was the skeleton key. They owned hardware. But I carried out leverage. While Todd played checkers with emojis and PowerPoints, I'd spent over a decade building the architecture that ran beneath his empire. And that morning, he tried to delete the queen. Trouble is, Todd had admin privileges, just no idea what he'd logged into. The motel room smelled like old bleach and last chances. Room 108, next to a vending machine that hummed like it was conjuring ghosts. I sat on the stiff bed, cross-legged like a tired monk, fired up my $279 Chromebook. Burger and hand sauce bleeding through the wrapper. Tasted like victory, or salt, or vengeance. Hard to tell. Maybe all three. Either way, I needed fuel. I opened the waxy burger wrapper, like it was a letter from an old flame, messy, full of regret, still warm. I popped open the laptop. The fans spun up instantly, like they recognized my fingerprints, like they knew revenge was in the air. My fingers hovered over the keys for a moment too long. Not hesitation, not quite. Just acknowledgement, that quiet beat between heartbeats when everything changes. Then, instinct took over. Root folders, GitLab repos, Slackbot integrations, breadcrumbs of the empire I'd built brick by digital brick. Oh, look, there it was. The payroll sync I manually patched when Todd forgot to renew the API license last September. That little crisis cost me my weekend and a birthday dinner, but saved the company from backpaying 83 employees. I'd done it out of duty. Loyalty? How cute. I checked the admin dashboards. That's when the first grin cracked through. They hadn't touched a damn thing. Email routing. Still in my name. Domain registrar. Mine. Billing contact for the help desk platform. You guessed it. Camille Ayers. ArchiveOps.com. The one tied to a personal inbox Todd thought he deleted from records. Even the two-factor codes were still routed to my backup number. The one I gave HR back in 2013 during that ice storm that took out the whole regional office. I'd hotspotted into the core system from a gas station parking lot. That number still worked. Idiots. Not evil, just arrogant and lazy. too focused on their Q4 buzzwords and glossy pitch decks to notice that the entire digital skeleton of archive ops was duct taped to my credentials. I didn't rage. I didn't gloat. I just started making backups. Quietly, cleanly, patiently, no crashes, no alarms, just downloads, config snapshots, exported logs, bits of code no one else remembered I'd written. Half the system was undocumented because I was the documentation. Try training a fresh bootcamp grad to decode a webhook written in panic during a 3 a.m. ransomware scare. Good luck. The motel Wi-Fi hiccuped like it knew it couldn't handle what I was about to do. Through the wall, I could hear a couple arguing over something nautical and familial. I tuned it out. This was the moment I stopped being a ghost and started becoming the consequence. By the time my burger wrapper hit the trash, I had already resecured. 3 SSH tunnels expired a legacy token and deployed a soft watcher script. Just a heartbeat monitor. Nothing destructive. Not yet. Just enough to listen, to observe. Like a ghost attending her own funeral. Then, at exactly 6 a.m., the first whisper came. A script I named Client Dispatch Pi didn't fire. It had one job: send auto-generated analytics to our largest clients every weekday morning. Neat little PDFs with colorful graphs and fluffy synergy speak. To them, it was a blip. To me, it was a scalpel. I had just pulled the first stitch. Not the current token, not the backup. The one. The dusty credential buried deep in a legacy environment file named something like env. Old, final, use this.conf. The kind of thing only someone with a decade of late-night panic patches would even remember existed. And I hadn't deleted it, no, that would have raised alarms. I simply expired the key and left the file intact, its timestamp forged like a forgotten heirloom in a basement full of skeletons. I knew exactly what would happen. The moment the job tried to run the system would report a vague 403 forbidden error. The logs would implicate the wrong microservice, one of the newer ones that Todd's Agile initiative had duct-taped in. Then, someone freshly minted from a 12-week boot camp would spend 2 days elbow-deep in OAuth theory, blaming outdated scopes or expired secrets. Meanwhile, Todd would be barking into his Bluetooth headset like a man trying to shout his way through a firewall. Critical deliverables. This key partnerships. That. I sipped the motel coffee burned bitter, capable of sanding your soul down to plywood, and waited. By 9:42 a.m., the first ping landed. Melissa in marketing. Hey, Camille, any clue why Crownbridge Mutual didn't get their reports this morning? Their VP just called sounding. Not thrilled. I didn't reply. Of course not. By 12:11, 2 more hit. One from Jordan in DevOps, cool under pressure, but still new, and another from a frantic account manager's subject line, full of question marks, and CC'd to the COO. By 3 p.m., a full Slack thread had formed at your urgent Acorn reports. Theories flew like gnats on a summer screen door. Maybe the build pipeline failed. Maybe cron wasn't triggering. Maybe someone changed the time zone on the main server. All wrong. But they wouldn't check the right place. That ancient token expired with surgical precision, sat like a tripwire no one could see. And I'd changed the file's timestamp backdated perfectly, like a booby trap hidden beneath Grandma's carpet. I watched them scramble. Reboot Jenkins twice. Reauthorize a working OAuth client. My favorite. They blamed the client's firewall. Then Todd posted a condescending reminder about the importance of cross-functional communication. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on a motel biscuit that could have been used in self-defense. This wasn't destruction. Not yet. This was the edge of the cliff. The view before the fall. Just enough confusion to plant a question in the back of every mind. What else did Camille build that we don't understand? I had time. Time to let that question fester. At 11:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. Aaron from compliance sent a screenshot. Jenkins log timestamp. Thread full of digital carnage. One message. Did you change the API key? No greeting, no fluff. Just that. like a whisper behind a locked door. 3 more pings hit my inbox within the hour. One from Lucas. In engineering, "Hey Camille, if you're still up. Any idea where the old metrics handler logs are archived? The system's throwing weird flags, and I can't trace the origin." The second came from Tanya in HR of all people. "Just wanted to say, I always thought the way they handled things was dirty. Hope you're okay." Oh, Tanya, I was better than okay. I was watching a carefully contained meltdown unfold from a Motel 6, like it was an immersive tech installation at the MoMA. Turns out the issue with Crownbridge Mutual had a domino effect. Enter Cody. Or maybe it was Brody. Some fresh-faced junior dev with a beard that hadn't earned its stripes. HR had clearly pulled his name straight from the LinkedIn Freshman League. In his eagerness to fix the scheduler glitch, he pushed a hot patch straight into a test server I decommissioned 2 quarters ago. Big mistake. That server still housed an untagged beta version of our reporting module, the same one I'd flagged for deprecation last fiscal year. Within 20 minutes, Cody managed to overwrite 4 production config files, and in the process, wiped the weekly KPI summary for our highest-paying client. Oops. Meanwhile, Todd Garrison, "We're a family here," was apparently foaming at the mouth during an all-hands. Someone with a conscience leaked me the video recording. He paced like a cornered raccoon, blaming residual sabotage, and even floated the idea that I'd planted malware before leaving. Classic Todd. The same man who once asked if Jason was that new AI chatbot everyone's raving about. If you found yourself silently cheering for Camille, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There's more quiet power and corporate karma waiting in the next story, and you won't want to miss what comes next. But here's the best part. They still had 0 proof. No firewall alerts, no unauthorized logins, no breach. Just everything technically working, but just wrong enough to spook every department. It was like flickering lights in a haunted house. Harmless in theory, bone-chilling in practice. Every script I tweaked, every config I nudged, it was all cosmetic chaos. I didn't take the system down. I confused it, changed naming conventions on reports, reintroduced a time zone bug we patched back in 2019, subtly altered dashboard queries so Q4 client insights showed up as Q2 legacy instead. Nothing fatal, just enough to make the data feel like it was glitching through time. Oh, and I added a ghost alert in the logging tool, a red error code that didn't exist. Engineers thought it was a corrupted module. I called it my ghost bug, watching them chase it. Like toddlers chasing a laser pointer, panicked, determined, and completely in the dark. Every Slack ping was a standing ovation for my ego. Every failed fix a bouquet dipped in jet fuel. And behind it all, Todd seethed, powerless, clueless, unraveling thread by thread. Todd was unraveling, powerless, clueless, desperate to preserve the illusion that he was still in control. What he didn't realize was that the rot had already set in. Not a crash, not a breach. Just one untraceable glitch at a time. Each bug a question he couldn't answer. Each error a thread pulled loose. Bitterness. That part was long gone. What I felt now was cleaner, colder. Amusement of the surgical kind. The kind you feel when the guy who kicked you off the trapeze slips on his own pie and the whole circus goes up in flames behind him. Some people sip red wine when they need to think. I sip log files. It was past midnight. The motel AC rattled like it was coughing up regrets fighting for survival. I sat cross-legged on the stiff bed, bathed in the blue glow of my screen, scrolling through archived emails I'd mirrored weeks before leaving Archive Ops. Not out of paranoia, out of experience. Because when Todd started saying things like streamlining and sunsetting, I knew what time it was. Men like him use those words like mobsters use piano wire, tight, quick, quiet. That's when I found it. The smoking gun. Subject line. Action required Q3 security audit pre-checklist. Sent from me. Dated 4 days before my termination, I opened the spreadsheet. There it was, clear as daylight. A full internal audit plan already scheduled with my initials on every flagged item. Outdated credential trees, unfinished multi-factor rollout, 3 open S3 buckets from a shelved client project that had quietly gathered dust. I hadn't been trying to sabotage anyone. I was trying to save them. I knew we weren't ready. I was prepping the ground, quietly, cleanly. But what did Todd do? He fired the one person who knew where the cracks were forming. 4 weeks before the auditors were set to arrive. Perfect timing if you're trying to bury a problem. I leaned back, cracked my knuckles, and let that sink in. This wasn't a grudge anymore. This wasn't a disgruntled ex-employee poking holes out of spite. This was obstruction, and I had the receipts. So I began building the file. One by one, I collected every email I'd sent warning about risk exposure. Every reply where Todd said, "Let's circle back post-launch," or "No need to alarm the board." I exported logs of the patches I made to cover for his delays. I even grabbed a screenshot from the day I gave him direct access to the risk matrix. His only reply, a thumbs-up emoji. I labeled the folder Insurance. Then I documented my own firing Slack logs, calendar invites, the time-stamped removal from the system on the same day I was due to finalize the audit draft. I didn't write it like a memo. I wrote it like a prosecutor building a case. Neutral tone, clean timeline, solid evidence. Because this time, I wasn't just shielding my name. I was loading the chamber. The internal story they told themselves was tidy. Camille automated herself out of relevance. Neat, digestible, easy to nod at in a board meeting. But the truth? It was uglier. They'd cut loose the one person standing between their company and a federal compliance disaster. And if anyone came sniffing around later, I didn't just want them to find breadcrumbs. I wanted them to find breadcrumbs soaked in gasoline. I closed my laptop and let the silence stretch across the motel room. Even the vending machine outside had gone still. I wasn't angry anymore. Not bitter. Not even vindictive. I was ready. Because there's a moment when revenge stops being personal and becomes procedural. I had just crossed that threshold. Meanwhile, Todd stood in front of a cheap vinyl backdrop that read, Q4 Rebuild Stronger Together, in a font that looked like it belonged on a $12 motivational poster from Office Depot. He beamed into the live stream like a dad, showing off an IKEA bookshelf. Proud, sweaty, and completely unaware, he'd skipped 3 screws and glued the wrong panel backward. We've overcome some unexpected hiccups, he said, addressing the board and clients. But thanks to our resilient team and agile response, we're stronger than ever. Agile. God that was rich. In the corner of the screen, I caught Melissa from marketing blinking like she was being held hostage. Jordan from DevOps. His jaw flexed every time Todd said the word resolved. Because they knew. They hadn't fixed anything. They'd just slapped a fresh coat of jargon on a collapsing framework. The bug had stopped surfacing not because it was resolved, but because the scripts I wrote were built to fail silently when their dependencies broke. And one of those dependencies, a single-line import from a JSON config file, hosted in a private Git repo tied to a subdomain I owned. I deleted that repo last week. Quietly, surgically. Without it, the reporting module still ran. But all it delivered was nonsense stale numbers. Broken graphs, a pie chart shaped like a crescent moon, and a client satisfaction score of negative 12,000%. Still, everything looked functional until someone actually used it. And Todd. He built his entire demo around it. From my motel bed gas station, coffee cooling beside me, I watched the live stream. Todd clicked to unveil the dashboard like a magician showing off the finale. Now let's take a look at our real-time client insights engine rebuilt, refined better than ever. One confident click. A pause. Then the graphs loaded. Well, tried to. They didn't load. Not correctly. The color palette looked like it had been chosen by a confused jellyfish on NyQuil blues, bled into burnt orange, and a bright fuchsia bar graph blinked like a broken neon sign. The percentages didn't just fail to align, they broke math. A client listed as Crownbridge Mutual showed a negative engagement score of 14,700%, and the pie chart next to it, not round. Not even pie. More like a crescent moon, hand-drawn by a caffeinated toddler. The room on screen froze. Todd chuckled weakly. "Haha. That's clearly a rendering issue," he said, tapping the trackpad like it owed him a favor. "Let me just refresh, should clear right up." Click. Silence. Crash. The dashboard reloaded into a staging environment labeled Demo Staging, Final, V3, Copy, Do Not Use, Old. I nearly sprayed motel coffee across my screen. The camera caught it, all board members blinking, confused, horrified. One looked like someone had just recited Shakespeare at a funeral. Another client disconnected mid-call. Then came the whisper, caught on a still live mic. "What the hell is this, Melissa from marketing turned ghost white?" Jordan from DevOps stared dead into the camera like he'd just been named in a lawsuit. And me? I just sat there, arms crossed, not smiling, not laughing, just simmering, the kind of quiet heat that doesn't boil anymore, because it already scorched everything. This was Todd's false victory. He thought he'd tied up the mess in a nice corporate bow. He didn't realize that I'd laced the foundation with a string of Christmas lights now blinking SOS in front of every investor, every client, every eye with internet access. He used to mock me for building over-engineered systems, said his next-gen team would streamline everything. Turns out he was the simplifier. Now let's see how he untangles that knot. Todd's face turned the color of an undercooked pork chop. He was mid-pitch. This is the future of integrated analytics, when the entire product dashboard blinked twice, then collapsed into a wall of red. Error after error after error. A big yellow triangle popped up dead center. Invalid data source object config. Master not found. The sound. That dull thunk of a browser crash. One I'd heard 1,000 times in testing. The live stream didn't cut. Oh no. It stayed locked on Todd's panicked face, his neck sweat darkening the collar of his overpriced startup shirt. The board stared, some with mouths open, others frozen mid-blink, trying to figure out if this was some kind of avant-garde satire on digital disruption. Then it happened. The rep from Crown Bridge Financial unmuted herself with a single clipped line, "We'll need to re-evaluate this partnership. Effective immediately. We'll need to re-evaluate our partnership. Effective immediately." The line hit like a detonation. One by one, the logos of partner firms began disappearing from the shared dashboard, a slow bleed like digital arteries being severed in real time. Someone had been screen sharing the client engagement feed. Now, that feed was bleeding out live in front of everyone. Todd stammered, If everyone could just give us a moment. We're having a caching issue with one of the staging servers." "Jordan?" He said it again, louder, like maybe volume could save him. "Jordan." He turned to his VP of engineering like a drowning man reaching for a life jacket made of excuses. Jordan looked like he'd rather melt through the floor. His voice was low, barely audible. "This isn't staging," he said. "It's prod." And there it was. One of my old co-workers, Danielle from Backend, still hanging on out of habit or misplaced loyalty, locked eyes with the camera. She didn't say a word, but her lips moved slowly. "Precisely. She did this." "Damn right I did." Not for pettiness, not for vengeance, but because Todd turned operational systems, things meant to protect people, into props for his smoke and mirrors show. And you don't fire the woman who built the power grid, then expect to keep the lights on. Back in the motel room, I closed the stream, stood up, stretched. The coffee on the nightstand had gone ice cold. My joints popped like bubble wrap. I didn't feel smug or victorious. I felt clean, like I'd just unearthed the last live wire from a forgotten landmine and walked away before anyone stepped on it. I sat back down and opened the secure legal portal I'd prepared 2 nights earlier. 2-factor authentication, encrypted upload, metadata scrubbed. I started dropping in files. A PDF of the audit schedule, the one Todd tried to erase when he fired me. Email chains where I warned him about MFA delays. Time-stamped Git logs, tracing bugs back to his own reckless pushes. Screenshots of him approving the rollback of security protocols to speed up login. And then, the voice memo. One I'd accidentally recorded the day before I was fired. Todd's voice laughing. "We'll just spin it as optimization. She made herself obsolete, saves me the severance." I uploaded everything. Labeled the folder Compliance Breach, Airs v. Archive Ops. I didn't click send. Not yet. But it was there now. Anchored, airtight, permanent. Their system was collapsing in public. I wasn't accelerating it. I was just making sure the autopsy read, honest. 3 days later, I got an email. Subject, cease and desist. A soggy white flag dressed up in pinstripes. From a law firm with a name like Wexler and Thorne. Paragraphs of legal chest thumping. Cease all access. Return proprietary materials. Prepare for civil action. I read the cease and desist once. Then again. Not because I didn't understand it. I just wanted to savor it, the smell of panic dressed up in pinstripe legalese. They still thought this was about revenge. About emotion. About me being bitter. They had no idea. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even angry. I was surgical. I opened a fresh document. Began crafting my response the way someone might assemble a bomb inside a jewelry box. Precise, clean, elegant. To whom it may concern attached, please find documentation relevant to the compliance breach initiated under the direction of COO Todd Garrison, including internal communications, referencing delayed audit schedules. Slack logs verifying my termination, which directly preceded a scheduled internal review. Dependency reports showing that critical operational systems were still tied to my personal credentials post-departure. Also included an audio file recorded the day before my dismissal in which Mr. Garrison states laughing that I made myself obsolete and that firing me would save the severance and bury the audit. Please, be advised should your office proceed with legal action, these materials will be submitted to the SEC and appropriate regulatory bodies. Additionally, I have preserved evidence of knowingly false statements made to clients during a major system failure. In lieu of escalation, I will accept the following. A formal written statement clearing my employment record. A public retraction of wrongdoing. The severance bonus outlined in Section 28 of my contract adjusted for inflation. Kind regards, Camille Ayers. I CC'd their in-house legal team. BCC'd an old coworker who still had a spine. And clicked send. Silence. For 48 hours. Then the reply came from the same firm, let's work toward a mutually agreeable resolution. Translation. They didn't want this smoke. By week's end, the money was in my account. A tidy line item labeled consulting closure. No trial, no drama. Just the antiseptic quiet of corporate damage control at its finest. They reclassified my exit as a strategic restructure. Scrubbed the black mark from my file. Issued a backdated HR memo that called me instrumental to the company's legacy of innovation. No apology. But in their world, that memo was the apology. A quiet kneel behind closed doors. Todd still employed. For now. But the board had eyes now. Questions, whispers, me. And I wasn't trembling anymore. I was sharpening. The elevator doors opened with a quiet chime. New city, new skyline, new battlefield. Sleek floors, glass walls. Titan Solutions, Archive Ops' biggest rival. I'd reached out the week I was fired, still burning from the sting. They got back to me in 48 hours. Made an offer in 72. Their CTO called me the kind of dangerous we need on our side. Damn right. Damn right. That Monday morning, I walked through the glass doors of Titan Solutions wearing a blazer that still smelled like fresh packaging and quiet victory. The receptionist greeted me with a smile and a steaming cup of coffee oat milk, no less. Not the motel brewed sludge I'd been downing for a week straight. My badge already printed. Laptop fully configured. desk stocked, with an onboarding packet so organized it made my old team's version look like a ransom note. Everything felt foreign, like I'd stepped into a version of reality where my brain wasn't a threat, it was an asset. By noon, I was settled in. VPN secured, password vault synced, access granted. My new manager, early 50s, sharp-eyed calm, strolled over with a tablet tucked under one arm. She smiled like someone who knew exactly what I'd come from and exactly what I was capable of. 6 words. "Hey, we've got a client audit." I nodded absently. Then she added, "New account. Parallax Technologies." My fingers froze mid-keystroke. I looked up. "Come again." She tapped the tablet and turned it toward me. Project brief open. Red flags everywhere. Damage control mode. Infrastructure's a mess. Compliance is worse. And get this, Todd Garrison is still leading operations over there. So, yeah, should be fun. I didn't laugh. Didn't even blink. I just reached for the file, opened the audit outline, and whispered, "Oh, this'll be fun." Because now I wasn't sneaking in through the firewall. I wasn't patching code at 3 a.m. from a motel parking lot. I was walking through the front door, clipboard in hand, receipts ready, wearing their competitor's logo like a scalpel. Every shortcut they took, every audit checklist they buried, every patched-over vulnerability wrapped in PowerPoint jargon, I would find it, document it, file it, and this time they'd be paying me to do it. As I connected to the audit server, something flickered in the corner of my screen. Wi-Fi networks. Parallax. Internal popped up. Connected automatically. They never changed the password. Of course they didn't. I leaned back in the chair arms behind my head, skyline gleaming behind me. Let the audit begin. Because what hits hardest in this story isn't the downfall. It's the precision. Camille didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She documented. She waited. And then she executed. There's a quiet kind of power in knowing your worth and letting them choke on the consequences of underestimating it. So if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside, this one's for you. Hit subscribe, drop a comment for Camille, and stay tuned. Because in the corporate jungle, it's not always the loudest voice that wins. Sometimes it's the quietest one, carrying a kill switch.